RetroUSB, a company known for making clones of NES Championship cartridges, which are incredibly reasonably priced compared to the original. They also make flashcards for NES and SNES, allowing you to play ROMs directly on your original hardware. Last year they released the AVS, which was a brand new HDMI NES that uses a custom FPGA board that replicates the NES. This is a far better alternative to the Retron 5 you would find in the store because it's not an emulation device and it can play all games released for the system in native HD. Every year since 2008, RetroUSB has released a Christmas cartridge, which contains a Christmas game for about $40. They come in a clear case and some of the cards have blinking lights in them, something you cannot find on any retail NES game, and best of all, it plays in your original NES. And so they come out with this, the 8-bit Xmas 2017. This is the 10th iteration of the Christmas games, so to celebrate, RetroUSB made something truly unique. The cartridge looks like a regular NES in a clear plastic shell, except that instead of a paper label, there's an LCD screen. The LCD screen doesn't do anything when the card is on your shelf, but when you plug it into your NES and power it up, the LCD screen comes alive and displays the game label. Change the selection and the label changes along with it. The cart contains all 9 previously released games so you can play them at your leisure. It's impressive that this tech can be put into an NES cartridge. The LCD is backlit so it shows up in a darker room, and it recognizes what system you have so the label is orientated correctly. I have a top loader so it label places like a normal NES cart, but if you put it into an AVS, you'll have the label facing out or upside down. It's a pretty nice touch. While the cart did work in my Generation Next, which is the first modern NES clone, the LCD did have some problems displaying, but the games work just fine. They make it clear that it works in almost every single NES iteration out there except for the Retron 5 and other emulation systems. The build quality is really good, however I would have liked to see the LCD screen covered up. Having it exposed really opens up for damage, but as long as you're careful, it'll be fine. So now that you've spent $75 plus shipping on a cartridge, what do you do with it? Well, you have 9 games that you can play. I use the games loosely here because they're not really robust games that you expect on a Nintendo Entertainment System. These are more closer to Atari 2600 or Intellivision games. The Christmas music in the background is nice, so let's take a look at these games. First thing you'll notice is the menu. The menu has each game sorted by year. 2008 at the top left, 2016 at the bottom right. The menu is a bit floaty and the cursor doesn't move down to the next item if you just press all the way right. It'll appear on the left instead on the top row. So what you'll need to do is go all the way right, then press down on the next menu item. It's kind of silly, but whatever. To get back to the main menu in each game, you just hold start and select until the game exits. So now let's review the games. So for 2008, the game isn't really a game, it's just a splash screen with some Christmas music and chiptune. You press A to move to the next song, or you can just let it sit and repeat. Now on to the next game, which is Snowball Fight, originally released in 2009. This can be played with up to 4 players, or you can play against the computer. The goal is to throw snowballs at each other, get the most hits in allotted time, which can be changed, and you win. There's really nothing else to this game. The graphics are lackluster and the controls are basic, but for a simple game you can play with friends, it's not so bad. I rate this one a 4 out of 10. In 2010, Jolly Joyriding would be released. This game supports up to 4 players and you're Santa throwing presents into chimneys, but only when there's fire lit. The controls are really weird and sometimes you go too fast to throw presents accurately. There's no time limit, but eventually the game does end, and there aren't any modes to choose from. The graphics are subpar, so I rated it a 2 out of 10. Next up is 2011's Fireplace Bash. This is probably the best game on the cart. It's a 4-player Arkanoid clone, and the goal is to break through the bricks to hit the flame that you're protecting. If your flame is taken out, it's game over and an extra ball is added to the mix, making it harder for the remaining players. After each game, the level changes to add more challenge. The graphics are okay, but the gameplay is good, so I rated it a 7 out of 10. Now 2012's Biplane Dogfight. Another 4-player game where you shoot each other. This game's graphics are terrible, and if you didn't tell me that these were planes, I would have thought that they were just scribbles that shoot dots out. It's hard to keep track of your plane, and there's really no specified time limit. Just go until the title screen comes up again and tells you what the winner is. I rate this a 3 out of 10. Next up is Santa's Blaster, made up in 2013, and it's a space shooter like Space Invaders, only worse. The aliens just move back and forth and shoot randomly. You can move to the left side of the screen by going all the way to the right, and this game goes on until you get a game over. Get the highest score and you win. I rate this a 2 out of 10. 2014 offered a unique game called Killer Queen Arcade, which really isn't a Christmas game, but up to 6 players can play with 2 power pads simultaneously. I don't have a power pad, so I can't really tell you how it would play, but I just played it with the controller and it plays okay. This is a port of an arcade game that looks substantially better, and I can't really tell what I'm supposed to do in this game, but apparently you're supposed to step on worker bees while completing goals. I don't really know. These games don't have instructions, so I rate this 3 out of 10. 2015 seems to redeem itself with 12 Seconds of Christmas. This is a simple platformer and you have jewels that you need to stack to complete the stage. You only have 12 seconds to place each piece, so you need to work fast. This is fun and the graphics look something like you would actually find on an NES game, so I give it a 6 out of 10. The last game included on this card is Xmas Pinball. Released in 2016, it's exactly what you think it is. Pinball with Christmas music. The right flipper is controlled with the D-pad, and the left flipper is controlled with the A or B buttons. Start pulls the plunger and puts the ball back into play. The ball is kind of floaty, and the gap between the flippers is too wide, which results in a lot of lost balls. There aren't too many details to it, but it is the most complex game on the cart, so props to that. I rate it a 5 out of 10. So, for $77 shipped, is this game worth it? Well, it's worth it for the uniqueness of having an LCD and an NES cart, but the games are mediocre at its best and there's much better chiptune music if you're interested in that. They're still in stock so you can get it now, and I would be really surprised if they make something like this again. You really only get the full feature of the cartridge if you have a top loader NES or an AVS, which allows you to play with the lid open. Other systems like the NES keep the cart tucked away from view, so the novelty is lost on that. If you're a fan of these types of homebrew carts, I say buy it. It's worth the conversation piece for a collector, but if you're just buying it for a game, it's $8.50 for a game, and that's way too high. And these games look like they were thrown together at the last minute. I know programming NES games isn't easy, but if you have 10 years of experience, your games should be getting better with age. So that wraps it up for 8-Bit Xmas 2017. If you like this video, I'd appreciate a thumbs up, and if you're new here, please subscribe. I'm Super Nintendo, and I'll see you next time.